Hi, Money Magicians. How are you? Yes, I'm now doing morning live videos. I think that you guys are more receptive in the morning than in the evenings. Like I said, I'm just experimenting. Anyway, yeah, I'm about to do yoga again. But yeah, so I think this is the best time for me to do them because I'm also just getting awake. I've had my morning thoughts and I've woken up with my morning issues, which are actually a lot. I don't always wake up in a happy, like, oh, yay state. But anyway, today I woke up and the first thought on my mind, I guess throughout the evening, and the first thought on my mind was this whole concept that I think as African people, colonization has done so much damage to us, right? And I mean, we already know this. But I think it's not so much about what was taken in terms of the physical, but it's in our own abilities to heal ourselves. Because I keep thinking, why is it that I am reading about ancestral healing now through through the experimentation of psychoanalysis and psychologists throughout the Western world? That it's now an American thing, that like it's more within the West, that they're talking about this concept of ancestral healing. Because for most of us, when we talk about ancestral healing, we shy away from it. We've been taught that this whole concept of ancestral traumas that are passed down from generation to generation and healing the ancestral lineage is something that is taboo and it's satanic and it comes from colonization. And yet today there's a lot of work being done in terms of psychology and just psychoanalysis and just epigenetics, inheritance. There's so much work being done in the sciences just looking at studying the brain. I shared an article yesterday. Please read it. It's still from a Western standpoint, as Wisani pointed out, that there wasn't enough. A lot of the stuff wasn't actually about people of color, but I think it's really important to really look into that, because I think what we're not understanding a lot of the time is that we're carrying a lot of stuff around. Like the article points out that the article is in the Money Magic group. Actually, you can just look up what I posted yesterday, but they talk a lot about how carrying a lot of depression, and they look at people who have this whole thing of just like, he talks about a guy who had insomnia and suddenly developed insomnia at the age of 19. And he realized that the guy developed insomnia at the age of 19, and he started having this fear of death and freezing to death. And when they looked at the family history, they found that his uncle had passed on 30 years ago and had frozen to death. And somehow he had taken on that ancestral memory of his uncle, and his uncle passed on at the age of 19. So when he started getting triggered with these same issues, the patient had the exact same, started having issues about the fear of freezing to death, of sleeping, etc. And that's at the age of 19. So the age basically triggered the ancestral memory. And I'll talk about how that applies in terms of finances, right? And then he also talks about a woman who started having this desire to kill herself, and she's a patient of his, and she came through and she wanted to incinerate herself, basically. When he looked back at her ancestral history, he found that her grandmother's entire family had been incinerated in the Holocaust. So that trauma had been passed on to her. So her idea of how she would die was always through incineration, but it was actually that she had just taken on this ancestral trauma and this ancestral experience and taken it on as part of herself. So I think this is really key in terms of understanding even how ancestral memories are passed on from generation to generation. Well, they've already proven that, and it's being proven, but it's also understanding what this means in terms of financial traumas. And I've said this over and over again before, but what it is that we tend to think of trauma as something massive. So when I talk of financial trauma, I'm not talking of, and trauma is not something as intense as people freezing to death at the age of 19, entire families being incinerated during the Holocaust. That is intense trauma. But sometimes trauma is something as simple as your mom lost a job and suddenly you don't have the same access to the things that you like. Suddenly you can't afford the same things as you did before, and this happened at a critical age when suddenly you're becoming more aware of material things and how they influence your social circle. So for example, if your mom lost a job and you're coming into your teens, and before you could afford whatever the heck you wanted to afford, and suddenly you can't afford that. You can't be in the same social circles. You can't wear the same clothes, all that. Those things are traumas, and they passed on through the ancestral bloodline, right? So until you know how to deal with them in this particular lifetime and really go to that particular event, you won't, healing them, it will always be almost like there's this thing. It's like how he talks about how his clients had how his patients, so in the article, the doctor talks about how so many of his patients had tried so many different therapists, psychoanalysts, they'd done the pills, they'd done the whole 9 yards, and still they weren't healing because the trauma is so much deeper. You just don't affirm away, you don't just go to a therapist and talk about it in this lifetime. If the trauma is from another lifetime and it's not your trauma and it's an ancestral trauma, you need to go in there and heal it and help the ancestor be healed in some way. So there's many ways to do that, right? So, and I truly believe that every human being has the capacity to tap into that with guidance. And it's all it is. It's just about allowing yourself to be guided to go and just do the work yourself. I've always believed that you don't need like a zillion people to help you and to do ABCD, that you are your own guide, you are your own shaman. All you need is a little bit of direction to go there and ask how they can be healed and to heal yourself, which is exactly what I teach in my work in Money Magic course. But my whole point of doing this is to help us to say, you know what, our ancestors knew something that we have been told is not real and it's satanic and all those things, but they understood that we're not just living this life as ourselves, that we carry memories of those that have come before us. And now science is starting to prove that in a very scientific and practical manner. And seems like psychologists and psychoanalysts are starting to get to the party as well. So I think us as individuals, it's time to also examine that. So really understanding our family financial history is the first step, and then making the conscious decision to heal the family financial history and understand that sometimes our traumas come from something as simple as laws. For example, in South Africa, where we weren't allowed to own land, what that would do to a people's psyche, their dignity, their sense of self, even if that law was instituted for a decade, 2 decades, 4 decades, whatever it is, that will have an intense, that will leave an impression on us. And it's time for us to start having these discussions and start coming to the party to heal them, right? To heal ourselves and heal that entire ancestral lineage, because there are reasons why we're scared and petrified of having money. And we need to understand what that meant in terms of what that meant to our ancestors so that we can heal it and change it. And I know I'm talking to some people here that are like, oh God, here she goes again. She freaks me out. But I was hoping through sharing that article and sharing that it's not just me that's suggesting this. I mean, for me, it came up through, like I said, when I started doing Tantra yoga and I started going into ancestral memories spontaneously and really starting to understand, through my own experiences, to say, holy crap, this is really real. And then I started doing the research. And as I do the research, I come across such articles, which is why I'm starting to share them, because I think the more people know, the more it gives a better understanding as to why I keep saying that you can't compare your journey to someone else's journey, because you don't know sometimes what the ancestral story is, because some of us have deeper family traumas that go through the bloodline around money than other people. So some people can do affirmations and visualizations and just like completely heal, go to therapy and completely heal, do traditional therapies. And then some of us have to go just a tad deeper, because our stuff isn't just our stuff. And for me to truly heal my depression, I had to do the meditations, I had to do past life stuff, and then I had to do a lot of family stuff, because I understood that I know through observing my family, they may not have been diagnosed with depression or bipolar or any of that stuff, but I knew. I was like, all these, the way that they behave is classic symptoms. So I knew that I needed to do that work. So yeah, let's have a discussion, because I think these are really key things. Do you know your family financial history? Have you seen do you know like any of the traumas that people have struggled with? Your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, do you know how the marriage setup was? Things that they went through, all that stuff can help you in understanding why you behave the way you do with money, and it can help you start to heal. So thanks, guys. We'd really love to hear your insights in the comment section, because I truly think that as I continue with my journey around money, this is taking a lot more precedence, I think, with the inner child, inner teen, mother wound, father wound, all that my money magic students do, and that I go through with all my coaching clients. Like I just had one of my coaching clients is African American, and I had entire healing the maternal bloodline, because I started to understand that a lot of it, this need to survive and this fear of thriving, was really coming from that particular bloodline. So this week we'll do healing the paternal bloodline and really getting the grandparents, the great-grandparents, the great-great-grandparents into the healing session in my coaching, because I understand that that's a huge part of the work. So when the money magic students are talking about they're having incredible breakthroughs, etc., it's not just the spirit of money work that they're doing. They can really tell you that they do a lot of mother wound work. And in the mother wound work, we're not just healing our relationship with our mothers. We're having our grandmothers heal their relationship with our great-grandmothers. Our great-grandmothers heal the relationship through the past maternal bloodline. So I think these things are really important. Read the article. So I'm starting to feel really excited, because I'm starting to get scientific proof for the next book. So it's not just going to be my opinion and I had this experience as I was in India or in South Korea and doing the work on myself and working on my clients. Is now actual scientific proof, and I'm getting super excited about this work. Okay, so Boitumelo, you say this is so profound. It is, and this is why I love the work, and this is where magic in this work lies. It's going into beautiful spaces, and this is why you'll hear a lot of my students talk about their family relationships have shifted. It's not that their family relationships just shifted, it's that they've been healing things, and as they heal themselves, that starts to reflect within the family and within the bloodline. So there's so much, because our family is also responding from trauma. So understand that if I'm feeling the trauma, my mother is feeling the trauma, my sister is feeling the trauma, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, everyone felt that trauma, and depending where it originated from. So if I'm behaving crazy like this, it makes sense that my mother would also have had these crazy behaviors, and it becomes easier to forgive and let go, because you understand, because you can see it within yourself. So happy healing. Let's have a discussion on this, because like I said, I think my work moving forward, I can see that it's going to start being more solidified around this, and this for me is where I'm starting to understand the origination of emotional intelligence work is also around this. It's really a lot around family stuff, and I'm just in love with this work as I do the research and I share this. So anyway, let's have a conversation in the group. Have a fantastic day. Bye.